Okay, sorry, we haven't actually let anybody in yet, so hang on just a minute. Let me let everybody in, and then we'll go ahead and do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, they'll be here in just a minute. All right.
You look up the Groton School, Caitlin? Were you going to look it up?
Thank you for your patience. We're going to begin momentarily. In the meantime, please take a close look at the list being projected on your screens. These are the many organizations and individuals who joined together to make this program possible, including the Rhodes Coast Memorial Committee, all of our co-sponsors, national and international partners, and of course, our production, administrative, and technical teams. Please take a close look, and thank you for your patience as we get started. All right, I think we'll get started now. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us from across the United States and around the world for a truly extraordinary program today. My name is Jason Okrent, and for the next hour, I have the privilege of introducing you to our renowned guests and speakers. I'm speaking to you today from my home in Seattle, Washington, on behalf of Congregation Ezra Bessaroth, where I'm a fourth-generation member, on behalf of our esteemed co-sponsors, each of whom I have a strong personal connection to, and on behalf of the Rhodes Coast Memorial Committee. As you may have seen in the promotional materials, this annual event has for 10 years been held at the Ezra Bessaroth Synagogue. This year, of course, our program will be presented virtually. Like so many other organizations, we've been forced to reimagine this event, but more importantly, reconsider its meaning given the unique circumstances and difficulties of the pandemic. What does it mean to go virtual when a day of remembrance, when so much of its impact lies in the very fact that we're all still standing here together? Well, let me take a moment to tell you what it means to me. My wife and I were blessed with a beautiful child this year, Shimon Ezra in Hebrew. He is named for his grandfather, himself a survivor of the Holocaust, and he carries on the legacy of the victims. As a father, it's not lost on me that he may never meet his grandfather. He may never get that sacred opportunity to talk to a survivor face to face. His experience of the Holocaust may solely come from events like this one. In the future, for all of us, our experience of the Holocaust will be predominantly virtual, no matter where we're standing. And it's up to us to bridge the gap for future generations. I want to thank the Rhodes Coast Memorial Committee for never wavering in their commitment to this memorial, and in what I hope will be a new tradition, making it stronger by inviting our sisters and brothers from all over. We have, at last count, I think close to 250 individuals and families with us. And when I see all your faces on screen, I'm overcome by the same feeling of unity I've had in years past. We are all here together to say once more, and with one voice, we will not forget, and we will not allow this to happen again. On that note, I would like to introduce our program. We're going to start by hearing from a number of distinguished speakers, live and via video message. Of course, we have the piano recital from renowned pianist Renan Cohen, broadcasting from the Italian Synagogue of Istanbul. It's going to be a real treat. And the program will conclude, as always, with a memorial service, the Hashkava prayer. But first, please turn your attention to a video message from the Rhodes Coast Memorial Committee Chair, David Bihar.
I'm David Bihar, Chairman of the Rhodes Coast Memorial Committee. It's my pleasure to personally welcome all honored participants and distinguished guests from around the country and around the world. I want to thank the committee, co-sponsors, U.S. and international partners, and all those who provided support and assistance to prepare for this program. It's a long list, so we created an opportunity for you to see it at the beginning of the program, and we'll display the credits again at the end. It's an extraordinary group of organizations and individuals. Among our U.S. and international partners, there are a number of organizations that represent historic Ottoman Ladino-speaking communities, many founded by immigrants in the early 20th century. Communities with whom we have so much in common, but with whom we've had limited contact over the past century. Just in the past few days, however, we've received messages of support from partners in Harare, Zimbabwe, Buenos Aires, and Johannesburg, South Africa, to name a few. How ironic it is that the connections we have over thousands of miles and many decades are enhanced now on a certain level as a result of this terrible pandemic. It is a silver lining. Let us continue to build these relationships, to share with each other, to learn from each other, and perpetuate the culture and tradition the Nazis tried but failed to erase. That will be the greatest tribute and honor to those souls whose loss we mourn today. We have here today many extraordinary leaders of our American and World Sephardic community, too many to name. Welcome to you and to your communities. Internationally, we have guests from Israel, Belgium, Mexico, Argentina, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Greece, and we're privileged to have the Honorable Rabbi of Athens, Rabbi Gabriel Negrin, with us today. And of course, we have our host community of Istanbul, Turkey. I can't adequately express my appreciation for the graciousness extended us by Ms. Renan Cohen in every aspect of the planning of this event. She's an extraordinary person and an extraordinary artist, and I take this opportunity now to thank her sincerely and personally. Renan communicated on our behalf with the Honorable Chacham Bashi, Chief Rabbi of Turkey, Rabbi Yitzchak Haleva, and the Consular Board of the Office of the Chief Rabbi, with President Errol Cohen and Co-President Yitzhak Ibrahim Zadeh of the Jewish community of Turkey, and with the Italian Jewish community of Istanbul, President Mr. Rafael Bahar. I want to thank all of them, and especially I want to thank the Italian Synagogue of Istanbul and its board of directors. Thank you for your incredible generosity and hospitality in providing such a beautiful venue for Renan's recital. Guests can still go to our program website to see the video provided by the Cajal de los Francos and feel the warmth of their beautiful community. A special thank you to Ethan Marcus of the Sephardic Jewish Brotherhood of America, a special co-sponsor for this event, and Richard Green of the Holocaust Center for Humanity, for advising and planning with our professional, technical people, and with Renan's audio team in Istanbul. Ethan has been a significant help from start to finish, and is directing the program right now from the Sephardic Brotherhood host site, with the assistance of Kara Schoonmaker of the University of Washington. Thank you so much, Ethan. I want to acknowledge Albert Israel, president of the Ezra Bessaroth, and Jack Shalom, president of the Sephardic Bikur Cholim, of Seattle, and the special relationship between our two congregations. And thank you, Jason Okrent, for agreeing to MC the program today. Dee Simon, the Baral family executive director of the Holocaust Center for Humanity, was introduced to this program in 2013. In 2015, she became a permanent co-planner of our program. For that 2015 program, Dee took testimonies that the Holocaust Center had recorded of a number of local survivors from Rhodes and Salonika, and assembled them into a beautiful documentary that is a treasure for our community. It was ultimately accepted into the film archives of Yad Vashem. Dee is a gem, and we can't thank her enough. Finally, I want to recognize the founders of this annual memorial, Harley and Leila Franco, who, in consultation with another community leader, Joel Benalil, created and dedicated a courtyard at the Bessaroth in a motif reminiscent of the island of Rhodes, and whose central feature is the Martyrs' Monument. The courtyard was dedicated in honor of Harley and Leila's dear parents, Robert of blessed memory and Lucy Franco, and Abraham of blessed memory and Serena Sabin, on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the Bessaroth in 2010. With the installation of the monument to 1,604 martyrs, almost the entire Jewish community of Rhodes and Cos, the Francos and others decided from that point forward to acknowledge every year the profound loss that resulted from the deportation of those communities from their beautiful island homes to Auschwitz on July 23, 1944. Thank you, Leila and Harley, for your vision, for your leadership, and for your friendship. Para muchos años con salud buena. Thank you.
Just want to say we have, first of all, thank you, David. And I just want to say we have over 300 individuals and families on the call now, and that doesn't include our live channel. So really an amazing turnout today. Our next presentation, Leila Franco and Cynthia Flash, two longtime organizers of this program, along with their sons, Evan and Robert, produced a stirring video presenting the history of this program and a perspective on its relevance within the context of current events. The video features Joel Benalil, Board of Regents Chair, University of Washington, and Professor Devin Nahr, Isaac Al-Hadif Chair of Sephardic Studies at the University of Washington as well. I invite you to watch that with me now.
Before the Jewish communities of Rhodes and Cos' ultimate deportation in July of 1944, Rhodes-Lee Jews enjoyed a rich and textured history on the island. Translated as the Island of Roses, Rhodes was home to Jews since the Roman Empire when they settled there after the fall of the Second Temple. By the 16th century, the Jewish community in Rhodes was thriving, and later in the century, Kahal Shalom was constructed. Kahal Shalom remains the oldest standing synagogue in Greece. Rhodes-Lee Jews enjoyed relative autonomy, continuing to speak Judeo-Spanish and practicing their unique customs on the Turkish-controlled island. After Italy conquered the island from the Ottomans in 1912, just before World War I, the Jews of Rhodes learned Italian. Indeed, it was not uncommon for a Rhodes-Lee Jew to speak 5 to 6 languages. But by 1938, as Italy allied with Germany, new anti-Jewish laws forced the school's closure and a dramatic change to the island's residents. The Nazis occupied Rhodes in 1943, further restricting movements of the Jewish community and terrorizing them. By July 18th of 1944, plans were made for the final deportation of the Jewish residents of Rhodes to Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. When they arrived at Auschwitz in the middle of August, 600 youths were selected for hard labor. The remaining Jewish residents of Rhodes and Cos were killed. Fewer than 200 of those 600 survived the camps. The descendants of the Rhodes-Lee community both survivors and those who immigrated from Rhodes before 1938 scattered throughout the Jewish diaspora, but a substantial number ended up in Seattle, Washington. Congregation Ezra Bessaroth is home to the Seattle descendants of the remaining Rhodesley community. In 2010, Ezra Bessaroth's centennial anniversary, congregants Harley and Leela Franco decided to donate a beautification of the courtyard as a gift to the community.
I was having a conversation with Harley and Leela Franco about their desire to finish what became known as the Franco courtyard. And they showed me a notebook of pictures of something that they were seeking my opinion about erecting something in the courtyard that reflected from the history of Rhodes. And there's the stand had been built for it, and it was a fountain that was reflective of a fountain, copying a fountain that exists in the Isle of Rhodes, in the Jewish section. But it's seahorses with water coming out of their mouths. And I reacted a little bit negatively to it. And I think they were surprised by that because they thought that was a pretty cool idea. And I said, you know, it's a beautiful fountain, and it's nice that it would reflect something that's an iconic image of Rhodes. Like the Space Needle is an iconic image of Seattle, but it has nothing to do with Jews. I wish that you would put something up in the courtyard that reflects the Jewish history of Rhodes. And that's how we got onto the subject of this monument. Well, it's very moving. Being on the Isle of Rhodes, seeing the original monument, it has 6 sides. And the 6 sides are in 6 languages with the same message. All 6 of those languages were commonly spoken on the Isle of Rhodes. One of them is Ladino, Greek, French, English. And then it sits on a 6-pointed star, which is obviously the Star of David. But the 6 sides and the 6 points, each one represents 1 million of the 6 million casualties, martyrs of the Nazis in World War II.
Over the years, the community has seen testimonials from Sephardic survivors. The community has listened to lectures from illustrious rabbis like Rabbi Mark Angel and Israel Chief Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, a survivor himself.
Rabbi Lau was here to be our keynote speaker, and he gave an address in the main sanctuary. And then we were going to come out here and do our usual memorial prayer at the monument. But since Rabbi Lau hadn't seen it, the Master of Ceremonies asked Harley and I to escort Rabbi Lau out here in privacy for a few moments before the crowd joined us. So I was able to take the opportunity with just the 3 of us standing at the monument to explain to Rabbi Lau the history of it, what its significance was, what its meaning was. And he was so moved that he went over, put his hand on it, and kissed his hand as if it was a mezuzah. And he turned to me and he said 3 words in Hebrew, Ze makom kadosh. This is a holy place. And I had tears in my eyes for the rest of the evening. A very moving moment from a Holocaust survivor rabbi.
Additionally, the courtyard was a tour stop for a United States Holocaust Memorial Museum conference. Sephardic Jews and the Holocaust, held in Seattle in 2013 and co-sponsored by the University of Washington's Sephardic Studies program. Professor Devin Nahr helped facilitate the cooperative conference. Stanford professor Aaron Rodrigue was the keynote speaker of the event, speaking about the collective memory of Rhodes before the war.
the forces that were behind the Holocaust, the forces of anti-Semitism, of racism, of racial purity, of Aryan superiority, of white supremacy. These are forces that both during the Second World War and since, in different iterations in different parts of the world, have continued to target and jeopardize the safety and well-being not only of Jews, but also of other marginalized populations. I think we have a particular responsibility to be aware and to act, not only in interest of self-defense, but also in extending our hands to those other communities in our nation who are the objects and the targets of some of the same forces that have had detrimental and devastating impact on our own communities. I think we can recognize that our own safety, our own well-being, our own prospects of freedom and liberation are bound up with those of our neighbors.
Thank you for that video. And thank you to Leela and Cynthia and their sons, Robert and Ethan. We have quite a youth movement in the production team this year, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Robert and Ethan for years to come. I also learned something new each year. I never knew the meaning of the six-sided monument, and that story about Rabbi Lau was unbelievable. Thank you for sharing. It's now a unique privilege and distinct honor for all of us in attendance to receive greetings from the esteemed Chief Rabbi of Turkey, the Honorable Chacham Batsi, Rabbi Yitzhak Haleva, whose message will be delivered in Ladino and subtitled in English. Ethan, please play the video.
Queridos hermanos, con grande emoción me adreso a vosotros por el laboro bendicho que estás organizando con la señora Renan Cohen por hacer recordar la Shoah. Este recuerdo en el mundo judío no es por sentimientos de venganza, sino que es respuesta a los que tienen intenciones no buenas de hacer minimizar el facto o hacer olvidar estos días maldichos. Sí, por esto es un grande deber de hacer, repetir de nuevo, acordar y hacer acordar, y por supuesto que domine la paz y la armonía en el mundo entero.
Thank you to Rabbi Yitzhak Haleva as well. Quite a greeting from him. Our next speaker, Dee Simon, is the Barral family executive director of the Holocaust Center for Humanity here in Seattle, Washington. As David said, she joined the program in 2013 through her relationship with the Franco family. And it's hard to overstate the impact she's had. She's been a guide to the program and an integral part of the planning team every year since she joined. I'd like to invite Dee Simon now. Please take it away, and we're all looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here today. A special thank you to you, Jason, and a special thank you to David Bihar, members of the Rhodes Co-Event Planning Committee, Harley and Leela Franco, and the participants in today's program. I'm grateful for the opportunity to introduce Renan Cohen, but also share the history that frames where two of the composers you'll hear today created their work in the Theresienstadt concentration camp. Through Renan's work, she spreads awareness of something she calls positive resistance, composers who under the most brutal conditions were able to create art, positive resistance. In the ghettos and camps throughout Europe, music was a form of spiritual and cultural resistance against the Nazis. Orchestras, choirs, and other musical groups performed to give secret performances. Theresienstadt, however, was an exception. The Nazis allowed musical performances in that camp because Theresienstadt was used as a model ghetto to show the world that the camps weren't really that bad, when in fact, of the 140,000 Jews transferred to the camp, nearly 90,000 were deported to the east, most of whom were murdered in Auschwitz and Treblinka. Roughly 33,000 people died in the camp itself, primarily of starvation, disease, or beating. 15,000 children passed through Theresienstadt, and although forbidden, many attended school, an example of positive resistance. They painted pictures, wrote poetry, and otherwise tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Approximately 90% of those children were murdered in killing centers. My mother was one of the children who survived Theresienstadt. She was in the camp 2 years. I'm here today because she was never transported to Auschwitz. I'm here today because she was lucky enough to work in the farm area and was able to steal food. Again, resistance. She's now 91 with 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. Despite the horrible living conditions in Theresienstadt and the constant threat of deportation, Jewish artists created drawings and paintings. Writers, professors, musicians, and actors gave lectures, concerts, and theater performances. The ghetto maintained a library of 60,000 volumes. All of this forms of positive resistance. Other camps, including Auschwitz, Sachsenhausen, and Buchenwald, had prisoner orchestras that were forced to perform for SS officers. In our museum here in Seattle, we have an accordion from Dachau where prisoners were forced to play. For these prisoners, music became a form of useful work that may have allowed them to live another day. But ultimately, their music was a form of resistance. Today, Renan Cohen will perform music from Gideon Klein and Victor Ullmann, 2 composers who created music while in Theresienstadt. Renan was raised in Istanbul. Both sides of her family are Sephardic from Castoria in northern Greece. Her grandfather's father was a rabbi in Hassan at the Castoria synagogue. An accomplished musician, vocalist, composer, and music therapist, Renan's album, Holocaust Remembrance Before Sleep, highlights works of both Klein and Ullmann. After Renan learned about the Jewish composers in Theresienstadt, she collected their work and later established a program for young people combining Holocaust education and music called Positive Resistance Through Holocaust Reality, which empowers students to create their own compositions. Her second educational program, March of the Music, takes students to Terezin. And in 2018, they performed a concert in the location where the music was created. Renan organizes concerts that raise awareness for Holocaust history and the legacy of Jewish composers and musicians who were prisoners. This year, for International Holocaust Remembrance Day, Renan performed at the United Nations and to the US Congress. When asked about how difficult it must be to share this emotional work with others, Renan responded, "I don't derive as much satisfaction from anything else I do. The work on the Holocaust, well, I don't name it as work." And I think I know what she feels. It's now my honor to introduce Renan Cohen.
Thank you so much, Dee. I'm honored to be introduced by you. Distinguished guests, I'm so moved to be part of this meaningful Holocaust commemoration. I would sincerely like to thank everyone who dedicatedly worked to make it happen. To me, it is a very unique experience, performing from this so beautiful, historical, and very meaningful Italian synagogue in Istanbul and meeting with you. It's a really unique moment for me. Years and years ago, when I learned about the Theresienstadt ghetto and the concentration camp, and that music performance and composition continued even during the time of internment, I was very surprised. And I was very curious about how the musical composition took place and how these new works came to life in such a setting. So I started my research for music scores. Although I was able to locate a list of the works without much effort, it took a long time to get hold of the actual scores. At first, 4 composers caught my attention. These composers were Sigmund Schull, Pavel Haas, Viktor Ullmann, and Gideon Klein. I ordered a few piano and the chorus works that they had composed before the war and during the internment in Theresienstadt. I was able to collect these works over the course of a few years. I still remember the day and the mixed feelings I had when I first held this scores in my hands. As a musician, when I first took a look at the choral works, I read the texts they used for these works. They were extremely interesting. In years, I also started to discover Sephardic songs and liturgies sang in camps by the victims. Tonight, I will perform some movements of 2 piano sonatas that Gideon Klein and Viktor Ullmann composed in 1943 and 1944, the years of their stay in Theresienstadt, and also some Sephardic ballads. Gideon Klein was born in 1919, studied piano with Professor Ruzena Kurzeva, and graduated from the masterclass of Professor Wilhelm Kerr with honors. At the same time, Klein studied philosophy and the musicology at the Charles University in Prague. He also studied composition with Professor Alois Haba. After the German invasion, all the Czech colleges and universities were closed down, as a result of which Klein had to take a compulsory break to his education. In December 1941, he was imprisoned in the Terezin concentration camp. In October 1944, was transferred via Auschwitz to Flüchtlingsgrube, where his life ended tragically in January 1945. In addition to the important works Klein continued to composing during his Terezin imprisonment, his efforts and those of Viktor Ullmann to organize music nights together, their perseverance in composition, and the essays they wrote were extremely important to the spirit of solidarity in the Terezin concentration camp, and also keeping the spirit of creativity alive. Ullmann, as a conductor, pianist, composer, and a music critic, Viktor Ullmann's contributions were particularly exceptional. He had studied with Arnold Schoenberg student Josef Polnier. When his professional life as a musician was curtailed by the Nazi policies, he tried to earn a living by traveling from one city to another. Finally, in 1942, he was imprisoned in Terezin. In addition to the works he composed in Terezin, he was also inspired a spirit of solidarity within a segment of the camp population, and he put in a lot of effort into maintaining that spirit. While dealing with friends and colleagues who were often depressed and lethargic, Klein and Ullmann continued to create and to organize musical nights to raise spirits. Ullmann writes, quote, "Theresienstadt has never been an obstacle for me. On the contrary, it was a training so I could create a new form in music," end quote. These words clearly explain to us his approach both to music and to life in general. When I examined the last piano sonata Gideon Klein composed in 1943 and Viktor Ullmann's last piano sonata that he composed in 1943 and 1944, I realized how both composers were able to find a new musical expression, also supported by the long discussions they had and the substantial composition training they received. It's evident they both of these sonatas were composed with this approach. In time, as I was able to appreciate the music in greater depth, and as I explored further the meaning of musical symbols, I understood what Ullmann had meant by a new form, and I was even more fascinated with the music. Ullmann had understood that what was created in Theresienstadt would not to be passed on the following generations in all its integrity. Though his compositions, he wanted to tell to the next generation the whole truth of what happened, as he experienced it, through the framework of his new form. In 2016, at the Recovered Voice Symposium, where I was invited by Michael Beckerman and Bob Elias and James Camden to perform a lecture concert, I presented my findings on Ullmann's and Klein's sonatas. I was able to present the last chapter of Ullmann's sonata, Variations and the Fugue on a Jewish folk song, from the perspective of my eyes and ears. The fugue part is major. He would like to say, I'm here and I positively resist with my music. James Cannon, who came to congratulate me with enthusiasm when my concert was over, quote, "You stumbled on a very real thing," he said. After performing this piece with an orchestra one day, a lady approached me and said, "My mother is a Theresienstadt survivor, and the Theresienstadt composers put Czech folk songs into their compositions to encrypt the works, and the Nazi officers wouldn't understand. There's a hidden Czech folk song in this work, and it says, 'I resist positively,'" she said. The same lady next day wrote down the music of the Czech song and gave it to Sir Cannon. And Sir Cannon, deeply touched by this, brought me this and Ullmann's manuscript as a gift next day. As for Gideon Klein's sonata, there is a full anger and pain. The only reason Klein's sonata survived to this day is that he passed his sonata to survivor sister Eliška Kleinova. Like any other musician, I rediscover these works each time I play them. Days would not suffice to discuss the in-depth analysis I have undertaken on these works. Distinguished guests, these two brilliant composers have brought their gift to today. This gift is called, what I call, as positive resistance. Since 2016, I have been relying the gifts that the composers that brought to the present today. The workshop I named, Positive Resistance Through Holocaust Reality, I teach to 14 and 17 years old non-Jewish youth at their own schools through the use of history and music. The training also helps them uncover and maintain their own personal strengths. After performing Ullmann's and Klein's work in Terezin, I created a movement called March of the Music, which I have been taking young students to Terezin for 2 years. The trip takes place in a scope of festival. There is only a must of this trip for the students. I ask them to create and produce something according to their talents or their education. And for 2 years, I've been making this creation played and published worldwide. I strongly believe that social peace can be achieved through personal peace, which can be achieved by realizing and working on one's own talents. Because talent is one of the main building blocks of contacting one's own soul. And I sincerely hope that only areas for children would be playgrounds, not the foregrounds. May the positive resistance gently grow in their life each day more and more through their talents with hope and love. Holocaust tears apart my heart immensely. I feel more than sad when I hear Nazis deported even the last person in Cos Island. I can understand that. In fact, I cannot understand. A Czech historian said one day, "We cannot understand what happened there. We can only approach it each time we hear it." I think he's so right. Nevertheless, they were all brave. They chose to hang on their souls. They sang, they wrote, they recorded, they composed, they paint the history. Before performing the two extraordinary works that the composers have heard and made us hear through their own sound worlds, and also some Sephardic ballads, I would like to express my deep respect and gratitude to these brave composers and to all the victims, or heroes, I would say, of Holocaust, who faced their circumstances in all honesty, continued to claim their ground until their last breath, and most importantly, recreated their lives each day using with their remarkable skill of positive resistance. Thank you. yeah, after the immensely strong works, I would like to play the Romanian Sephardic Resistor song. How I received this song, how I found this song. One day our Hahambashi, Chief Rabbi Itzhak Aleva, called me, and he knows very well how I keen of the works and the songs and everything in Holocaust. So he told me, I have a present for you. I have a manuscript to give it to you. I would like to give it to you. I said, I would love to have it, but what it is? And he said that years and years ago, I was in Romania for the Holocaust commemoration. And actually, I was with Elie Wiesel there. And after the commemoration, after the lectures and speeches and Ashkavaz, there was a concert. And they played this song. And I was like goosebumps. Very, 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 it was a very intensive moment for me. I was impressed a lot by this song, and I came back to Turkey, and I was thinking about this song all the time, and then I wrote a letter to them, and I asked to send me the music score, and they did, and today, and I would like to give you this manuscript, and today. I have this beautiful manuscript, and there is in not Arabic, but I think it's the Ottoman language writing it, and it says, "Hug me." And I would like to play it for you tonight. The beautiful Sephardic Jewish resistance song. I hope you enjoyed. For the last piece of this concert, I would love to play a Rhodes Sephardic song. It's not related to the Holocaust. When I've done a Sephardic album, Lost Races, Hidden Memories, I followed my family's route, the immigration route. They stopped in Kastoria in Greece, but I couldn't find anything from Greece, so I decided maybe it's a good idea to show some Rhodes songs. And I found this Sephardic songs, I loved it. And then I did my Holocaust project album. I started to play this Holocaust composers. I've done my album, and then one day I said that why not I go to the Castoria and maybe I can find our family house there. So as 3 friends, we went to Castoria, and I found the family house, and I also found out that I didn't know this before. The 20 people of my family died in Auschwitz, which I didn't know. So I would like to play all the victims or heroes, I would say, who died in Holocaust from Rhodes, from Kos, and from Castoria, from Greece. And this piece says, the Sephardic song says, goes like this. The name of the Sephardic song is Como la Rosa en la Huerta. And it goes like this in Ladino. Tristes horas en el día. Que hazina ya cayó. Como la reina en su lecho, ya cayó y se desmayó. Lágrimas de una madre, el Dios ya las va a sentir. Pensa que agora nacites, espera pueden venir. 7 hours in the day, for ill she fell. Like a queen in her bed, she fell and lost consciousness. A mother's tears, God will hear them. Think now that you are born, hope for a good future. the victims in Holocaust may be rest in peace.
First, I want to say thank you to Dee Simon of the Holocaust Center for Humanity for her inspirational words, and to our featured guest artist, Renan Cohen. Wow, we are so privileged to hear your words and your music. I felt transported to a different place, out of our homes, with you there at the Italian Synagogue of Istanbul, contemplating the victims, or as you called them, heroes. And thank you to Renan's audio team, Mix Music. To everyone watching, in case it wasn't clear, that was a live performance. I also just want to correct a previous mention. I said it right the first time, but not the second. The Rhodes Coast Memorial video was produced by Lila Franco, Cynthia Flash, and their sons, Robert Franco and Evan Hemphill. Thank you again for that video. To the audience, I want to invite you all to turn on your videos at home today, if you haven't done so already, because later in the program, we would like to show everyone together in recognition of this program's worldwide impact. So please do turn on your video. Transitioning to a more solemn portion of the program. It's at this time that we have adopted the custom of requesting that everyone who is able should stand and observe a moment of silence as a gesture of respect and acknowledgement for the victims, survivors, both living and past, and the families of both. Let's take a moment together to consider the enormous tragedy and loss that resulted from the Holocaust. Please rise. Thank you. It's now time for the culmination of our program and its original purpose to conduct a traditional Hashkava memorial service in memory of the 1,604 martyrs of Rhodes and Cos. Today, August 16th, marks the date in 1944 when they arrived at Auschwitz, and on which many of them were brutally murdered. So it's particularly meaningful for us to say the memorial prayer on this day, on the day that many of the martyrs died, as is our custom. Just to set the scene, at Ezra Bessaroth, we traditionally ask the survivors and their families to rise before everyone else, to make their way to the Franco family courtyard and stand next to the martyrs' monument that you all saw earlier. The families are then joined first by our clergy and followed by the entire community into the courtyard for the Hashkava service, all in dead silence. It's a powerful moment, and I'd like to ask you to join me, and let's just all put ourselves in that place, in that moment right now. The Hashkava service will be presented by the religious leaders of the Seattle Sephardic community as follows. Rabbi Varon Hazan, Sephardic Bikur Cholim, will lead us in a traditional reading of a psalm in Ladino and in English. Rabbi Hassan, the rabbi of Sephardic Bikur Cholim, will present a special prayer for the health of our communities around the world in light of the global pandemic. Very appropriate. Rabbi Ben Zaken, rabbi of Congregation Ezra Bessaroth, will lead us in the Hashkava memorial prayer itself. And finally, Hazan Yitzhak Azuz, Hazan Emeritus of Congregation Ezra Bessaroth, will end the Hashkava by singing a portion of a solemn Ladino ballad that is recognized to have been a source of nostalgia and perhaps solace to Ladino-speaking Jews in the concentration camps. Take it away.
Cantica de las gradas, cuando yo alzo mis ojos a los montes, pensando de dónde vendrá mi ayuda. Veo que mi ayuda es solo de con Adonai, hacedor de los cielos y la tierra, el cual no dará al resbalamiento a tu pie, porque no se adormecerá tu guardador. Pues que no se adormece jamás, y no duerme el guardador de Israel. Adonai es tu verdadero guardador. Adonai es tu sombra sobre la mano de tu derecha. Con que de día el sol no te herirá, y la luna en la noche, porque Adonai te guardará de todo mal, y guardará a tu persona. Asimismo, Adonai guardará tu salida y tu entrada desde ahora y hasta siempre. A Song of Ascents. I lift up my eyes to the hills, whence comes my help? My help is from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. May he not suffer thy foot to slip, may he not slumber who guards thee. Lo, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. It is the Lord who guards thee, it is the Lord at thy right hand, who is thy shelter. The sun shall not hurt thee by day, nor the moon by night. It is the Lord who will guard thee from every evil, who will guard thy life. It is the Lord who will guard thy going out and thy coming in, now and forevermore.
May it be your will, Hashem, our God, and the God of our fathers, that you should have abundant mercy upon all the inhabitants of the earth and upon all the inhabitants of this land, and shield them from all harsh and evil decrees that are arising and coming upon the world. And save us from all affliction, plague, sickness, and disease, and all those who are sick, who have been infected by this disease, heal them with a complete healing. Yours, Hashem, are the greatness and the might and the glory and the victory and the majesty. For all that is in the heavens and on the earth is yours. Yours is the kingdom, and you are he who is exalted over everything as the leader. And in your hand is the life of every living thing and the spirit of the flesh of every man. And in your hand is power and might to make great and strengthen and heal every downtrodden individual, every oppressed soul. Nothing is too wondrous for you. Therefore, may it be your will, the almighty, trustworthy, compassionate Father, who heals all of the illnesses of his people Israel, you, the trustworthy healer, send cure and healing and arise in abundant compassion, mercy and caring for all of those who are sick that have been infected with this illness. Please, Hashem, grant your kindness upon all the inhabitants of the earth and upon all of your people Israel. Please rise up from your throne of judgment and sit upon the throne of mercy and go beyond the strict law and nullify from upon us all harsh and evil decrees. As it says, and Pinchas stood and prayed, and the plague was stopped. Decree upon us decrees of goodness, salvation, and consolation for the sake of your kindness, and tear the evil decree of our judgment, and let our merits call before us. Raise up, help for us, and redeem us for the sake of your mercy. Please hear the voice of our supplications, for you are the one who hears the prayers of every mouth. Blessed is he who hears prayer. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be desires before you, Hashem, my rock and my redeemer. And let the words of the verse be fulfilled for us. All of the diseases that were put upon Egypt, I shall not put upon you, for I am your healer. And let us say, Amen.
Tov Shem Mishemen Tov, מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. אל מלא רחמים ומתמלא ברחמיו המרובים, על נפשות, רוחות ונשמות, במעלות קדושים וטורים וגיבורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, לנשמות אחינו הקדושים, הספרדים והרומניות, שנפלו חלק מ6 מיליוני היהודים, חללי השואה במלחמת העולם השנייה באירופה, שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו ושנספו על קידוש השם, בידי המרצחים הגרמנים הנאצים ועוזריהם משאר העמים יימח שמם. לכן בעל הרחמים והסליחות, הסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. ובצל שדי יתלוננו לקץ הימים תעמידם, ומנחל עלניך תשכם, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, ותשים כבוד מנוחתם, ותלווה עליהם השלום, ותקיים בהם מקרא שכתוב, ונכח אדוני תמיד והשביע בצד חוד נפשך ועצמותיך יחליץ, והיית כגן רבה וכמוצא מים אשר לא יכזבו מימיו. אדוני הוא נחלתם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, ויעמדו לגורלם לקץ הימים, ונאמר אמן. God, full of mercy, who dwells in the heights, provide a sure rest upon the divine presence wings within the range of the holy and the pure, whose shining resembles the skies, all the souls of our holy brethren, Sephardim and Romaniot, were cut off among the 6 million of our Jews, victims of the European Holocaust, who were murdered, slaughtered, burnt, and exterminated for the sanctification of your name by the German Nazi assassin and their cohort, helpless from the rest of the world. Therefore, Master of Mercy, protect them forever from behind the hiding of your wings, and tie their souls with the bond of life eternal. May the everlasting be their heritage, and the Garden of Eden be their resting place, and they shall rest peacefully upon their couch. They will stand for their faith in the end of days, and let us say, Amen.
Tu madre cuando te parió y te quitó al mundo, corazón ella no te dio para amar segundo, corazón ella no te dio para amar segundo. Adiós, adiós querida, no quiero la vida, me la amargaste tú. Adiós, adiós querida, no quiero la vida, me la amargaste tú. Búscate otro amor, ajarba otras puertas, espera otro ardor, que para mí sos muerta. Espera otro ardor, que para mí sos muerta. Adiós, adiós querida, no quiero la vida, me la amargaste tú. Adiós, adiós, querida. No quiero la vida, me la amargaste tú.
Thank you to our distinguished clergy for that moving service. I want to encourage you all now to continue to honor the memory of the martyrs by getting involved in your local communities, purchase or go find Renan's music, go visit the Holocaust Center for Humanity here in Seattle, as I did earlier this year, or get involved in the Sephardic Brotherhood or any of our many co-sponsors and partners today. I really just encourage you to do that. I would like to invite back now Renan Cohen, our special guest, along with a shofar blowing presentation from Leon Essene. Renan's going to be performing what you just heard a little bit from Chazan Azuz from Adio Querida. And then remember, please turn on your videos for one final moment at the end. Ethan, if you could please share Renan with us one more time. shofar blowing was very appropriate for the victims, and also as we near the month of Elul, a month of reflection in the Hebrew calendar. I just want to thank all of our guest presenters today. A very special thank you again to Ms. Renan Cohen and just to everyone involved in putting this together. I also want to mention Evan Hemphill was the one who produced the video of the Hashkava Memorial Service. At this time, to our technical team, let's all come together on video, on Facebook Live with the hundreds and hundreds of participants we have today, so that we can just see everyone together for one moment. I think there may be some technical difficulty there, but again, we've had probably 400 or 500 participants today. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you, Renan. I see you now on my screen. Bless you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And I look forward to seeing you all next year. And again, thank you to the committee, the Rhodes Coast Memorial Committee, for putting this together. It's really been a meaningful event in light of our current situation. And we just really appreciate you putting this together and reimagining it for a new world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.